There is a type of person who knows how the story ends before the first page is turned. They don't predict it. They feel it. Like a frequency no one else can hear but them. Most people call that overthinking, or arrogance, or living in their head. But there is a name for it. And what you're about to hear might change how you understand one of the most quietly isolated personalities in existence. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly why the INTJ lives with a kind of loneliness that isn't about rejection, it's about precision. And why the gift that makes them extraordinary is the same gift that makes them profoundly alone. The INTJ. Introverted, intuitive, thinking, judging. They make up less than 2% of the population. And yet they show up across every culture, every era, every institution. They are the architect who sees the flaw in the foundation before a single wall has been built. The strategist who quietly mapped the end game while everyone else was still arguing about the opening move. The visionary who spent years in isolation not because they were broken, but because their mind was running at a frequency the world hadn't caught up to yet. Carl Jung was the first to formally document this kind of inner perception. He called it introverted intuition, the psychological function that works not from data points, but from pattern convergence. It doesn't reason step by step. It leaps to conclusions that other cognitive types can't follow, and it is almost always right. But here is the thing that the textbooks rarely say. Being right consistently, quietly, uncomfortably right is one of the loneliest experiences a person can have. We're going to go through 7 reasons why high intuition leads to prophetic loneliness and social isolation. Let's start with something that surprises almost everyone. Number 1. They see the future in the present, and most people aren't ready. For the INTJ, intuition isn't a vague feeling. It is a structural read of reality. They track patterns across time, not consciously, not deliberately, but automatically. Their mind is always running simulations. Jung described Ni as the function that perceives the world through the lens of archetypal images and long-range implications. While other types react to what is happening now, the INTJ is already processing what this means 3 steps from now. The result is a person who often knows with quiet certainty how a relationship will end, how a project will fail, how a plan will unravel long before it does. And they are usually right, but they are also usually alone in that knowledge. Being the person who can see the iceberg while everyone else is celebrating the clear water that is not a gift that earns you friends. It earns you silence. But seeing the future is just the beginning. What's happening inside their mind while they carry that knowledge? That's where it gets fascinating. Number 2, their internal world is more vivid than the external one. Most intuitive types process ideas as concepts. INTJs process them as entire architectures, complex, layered, interconnected systems that they can move through, examine, and restructure entirely inside their own mind. Psychologist Dario Nardi, who spent years mapping cognitive functions to brain activity, found that Ni dominants, including INTJs, activate a full brain integration pattern when thinking. Their frontal lobes, parietal lobes, and occipital areas fire simultaneously. They aren't just thinking, they are synthesizing reality. This means the INTJ's inner world isn't a supplement to their outer life. It is their primary reality. When they are in conversation, they are already in the 3rd level of its implications. When they are in a room, they have already mapped it. When they meet someone, they have already drafted a preliminary model of who that person is. And the gap between that inner reality and the surface level interactions most people want to have, that gap is enormous. Now here's where it gets a little more complicated, because this is the part most people, even the INTJs themselves, don't fully understand. Number 3. The vision is clear. The translation isn't. The INTJ can see the endpoint. They can feel the shape of the solution. But when they open their mouth to explain it, what comes out is often a fraction of what they're actually seeing. This is because Ni operates at a level below language. It produces conclusions faster than the verbal system can construct an argument. The INTJ knows the answer before they know why they know it. Researcher and author Dr. A.J. Drenth, who has extensively studied cognitive type theory, describes this as the INTJ's greatest communication paradox. Their most important insights arrive as wordless impressions first. The articulation comes later, sometimes much later, sometimes never. So what happens in the meantime? They go quiet. They retreat. They say, I can't explain it yet, and mean it. And to the people around them who are waiting for a reason, a step-by-step, a why, that silence looks like evasion, like dismissal, like they simply don't want to engage. And this next one, most people in relationships with INTJs get it completely wrong. Number 4, the accuracy is perceived as a threat. There is something deeply uncomfortable about someone who is consistently right, especially when they are right quietly, without drama, without making a show of it. Research in social psychology consistently shows that groups push back against members who diverge from consensus even when those members are correct. This is known as the Cassandra effect, the ancient figure who was cursed to speak the truth and never be believed. The INTJ lives this. They name what they see, they call the outcome, and then because the world needs time to catch up, they are dismissed, called paranoid, called negative, called presumptuous. And so they learn to stay quiet. Not because they doubt themselves, but because they have done the math. Speaking will cost more than it earns. They begin to self-isolate, not from depression and not from arrogance, but from a perfectly rational decision that the social cost of accuracy is too high to keep paying. If you're the kind of person who actually thinks about what's happening beneath the surface of people's behavior, not what they do, but why, and you're still here, that tells me something about you. It would mean a lot if you hit subscribe. We put out videos like this every week, real psychology, explained in a way that actually makes sense for real people. Here's the part that doesn't get talked about nearly enough. And it matters. Number 5. They carry the weight of what they can see and cannot share. There is a particular kind of loneliness that comes from knowing. Not fearing, knowing. When an INTJ foresees the collapse of something, a relationship, a business, a plan, and they cannot stop it, they carry the outcome in silence. They watch it unfold. They have already grieved it, already processed it, already moved through the stages of what's coming while everyone else is still in the middle of it. Psychologists call this anticipatory grief. But in INTJs, it functions more like perpetual anticipatory grief. They are always slightly ahead of the present moment in their emotional processing. The toll of that is invisible. No one sees the grief that happens before the event. No one accounts for the emotional labor of carrying knowledge that hasn't yet become visible to anyone else. They are asked why they seem withdrawn, why they seem sad, why they already look tired, and they have no answer that the room is ready to receive. But this is the root underneath all of it. Number 6, they were never taught that their frequency was valid. In early childhood, the INTJ's intuitive perceptions are almost never validated because the adults around them, teachers, parents, even friends, operate primarily on sensory and social feedback. They live in the world of what is visible, what is measurable, what is agreed upon. But the INTJ child is already noticing the things beneath. The unspoken tension between two adults who claim to be fine. The structural weakness in a plan that everyone else is celebrating. The way a friendship is slowly ending before either person admits it. And when they name these things, they are told they're imagining it. Told they're being dramatic. Told to stop overthinking. Carl Jung wrote that the introverted intuitive type lives in a world of symbols and inner movements, and that the outer world appears to them only as a kind of stage set for their inner drama. This isn't pathology. It's architecture, but it is architecture that the world never built a room for. Over time, the INTJ learns a foundational truth that most people never have to learn, that the way they naturally experience reality will not be understood by most people, and they adjust their behavior accordingly. Which brings us to the last one, and honestly, the most important. Number 7. The oracle's burden becomes the oracle's gift when they finally find their people. Here is what the INTJ story doesn't end with, even though it sometimes feels like it will. The isolation is real. The loneliness is real. But neither of them is permanent, not for the INTJ who understands what they actually need. They don't need many connections, they need precise ones. One person who can follow the architecture of their thinking. One friend who doesn't need the 5 steps explained who already meets them at the conclusion. One relationship where accuracy isn't a threat, but a language. Susan Cain, in her research on introversion, documented something that rings especially true for INTJs. Depth of connection matters infinitely more to this type than breadth of connection. The INTJ who has one person who truly witnesses them is not lonely at all. They are perhaps the most specifically connected type there is. And when they find that connection, they don't hold it quietly or at a distance. They invest in it with the same systematic depth they bring to everything else. Completely, precisely, for life. So the next time you see someone who seems to already know how it ends, who goes quiet when everyone else is still celebrating, who watches from the edge, not because they don't want to be there, but because they are already 3 steps ahead. You're not looking at arrogance. You're looking at someone who has been carrying a frequency no one else could hear for a very long time. Someone who learned early that the price of seeing clearly is the loneliness of not being believed. Who built an interior world so vivid and precise because the exterior world simply wasn't large enough to hold what they could see. They're not broken. They're not cold. They're not distant. They are just waiting with extraordinary patience for the conversation that can finally hold the whole truth. If you want to go deeper on why the INTJ appears cold even when they're deeply feeling, that video is right here when you're ready.